Boom. And we're live. What's up, folks? Welcome back for another stream. So, asking a couple people in the chat what some good stream topics to go on. And actually got a DM from Cody Moose in the Who's about a stream about our favorite uncle, guys. Our favorite uncle, whose name happens to start with a T, but we won't name that person in this stream. Instead, we're going to actually talk about the Industrial Revolution and its effects on humanity, because believe it or not, it's actually been very extremely consequential on humanity and mankind, in my opinion, right? And maybe if you guys finish the stream, your opinion on the subject might be the same as mine, or it might be a little bit different. Okay, so I got a list here, guys, of a couple things. 7 things in particular that I think are kind of like noteworthy to talk about on the whole effective Industrial Revolution on humanity. One out of those 7 has to do with like the environment, but I guess since you could say us as humans live in the environment, that it kind of affects us too. Yes, RIP Uncle Guy that starts with a T that we won't say. So the first one, guys, environmental degradation. And the last topic I'm going to get to, because this is a tech channel, right? So I'm not going to make this completely untech related. In fact, like honestly, guys, technology as we know it these days involves computers, right? Computational stuff. And before we had actual computers with processors that process things in binary and put it on a screen, we actually had just bare bones machinery, right? So in essence, the entire Industrial Revolution is kind of a technological revolution. With that being said, though, like on a different kind of like subtopic, some people consider like the current time that we're in right now, like the information age. So instead of the industrial age, we transitioned into the information age. But in that sense, the information age is primarily revolved around technologies or machinery of information, which, for example, this computer that I'm using to stream right now, this Sony camera that I'm using to stream bits of binary of my fucking image onto you guys' screen, that kind of machinery. Side note, though. What up, yo, Uncle Larry Fink? What's up, Alex? Good to see you, man. Where's Larry Fink at in the house? All right, guys. So the Industrial Revolution, and actually, let's do this. Let's actually find a good Wikipedia. Let's go to Wikipedia, guys, right? Because they're the most trusted source out there. Instead of getting facts twisted, let's take an actual look at what a definition is of the Industrial Revolution. Yo, I'm streaming. Can you call me back? All right, bye. Oh my God. Okay, guys. So this here is Wikipedia, right? Number 1 trusted source for all information in the world. And what does Wikipedia have to say about the Industrial Revolution? So the Industrial Revolution, also known as the First Industrial Revolution, was a period of global transition of human economy towards more effective and stable manufacturing processes that succeeded the Agricultural Revolution. All right, so in this case, we probably should go ahead to the Agricultural Revolution and look at that first, because the Industrial Revolution succeeded the Agricultural Revolution. And what is the Agricultural Revolution, and in particular, the British Agricultural Revolution? So this... Well, okay. God, now we've gone too far. Now we've gone too far down the wormhole, guys. All right, so let's go. Okay, we'll just start with the Agricultural Revolution. So I'll just sum it up instead of using Wikipedia. And I'm not a historian, right? So the Agricultural Revolution is the revolution or the time period in humanity to where people were no longer nomadic in nature 100%, and the livelihood of communities evolved around agriculture. So like farms. Basically, think about a bunch of farmers all living together doing farmer stuff. Guys, I don't know if y'all can tell. I'm so dehydrated that my mouth is still dry after drinking water for an entire day straight, because I was in the water for 6 hours yesterday and I drank like a half of a fifth of tequila. I'll never do that again. So the Industrial Revolution happens after this, right? And so they're saying that this primarily started in Great Britain and the United States, but it was from between the periods of 1960 to about 1820, 1840. And the transition included going from hand production methods to machines. And if you think about this, farmers used to not have like John Deere tractors, right? They had like hoes and plows and stuff like that. But it wasn't just for farmers. It was for like iron manufacturing, as it says in here, chemical manufacturing, uses of power of water or water power, steam power, so like the steam engine, and mechanized factory systems. So output greatly increased as a result. Was an unprecedented rise in population and the rate of population growth. So this, like, essentially, like this entire industrial revolution ended up increasing the size or the growth in population substantially. So saith the Wikipedia overlords. Okay, so that's enough about the definition of what this is, okay? So on to my part about environmental degradation. None of us were really around during this time, but let's just say in that time period, 1760 to 1820, 1840, in the Americas, specifically maybe like North America and, you know, South and Central America as well. But let's just stick to North America. When people first came over here, there was like nothing, right? I mean, there was Native Americans. There was lots of like luscious land and animals, et cetera, but there was no Miami, Florida. There was no New York City. There was no LA. None of that was around, right? Since we came over here and kind of started increasing the population, the forestry and the natural inhabitants of the places, North America, has since dwindled, right? So I want to show you guys something else here. Let's actually watch this, guys. Watch this with me. Let's get educated. All right, guys, so here's a video from a time lapse of Google Earth of our serve my car, Kyle. Christian Soto with the Big Mac emojis in the house. Did you finish it, Kyle? All right, so this is a time lapse of our forests in Google Earth. Now I don't know. I think let me make sure. Let me check the dates on these. Okay, I don't think it's going to tell us, but whatever. Let's watch it anyway. Oh, hold on, guys. I probably need to share this with sound so you guys can hear, although it's probably just going to be music. So this is nearly half of the world's forests have already been cleared or degraded for human use. So we got Bolivia right here, 1984. It looks pretty green. Then by 2020, it was not so green. Where else are you taking us, Google Earth? Enright, Oregon. Okay, I mean, that's not like a huge difference, but every minute an area of tropical tree covers the size of, hold on, what did that say? Every minute an area of tropical tree cover the size of 40 football fields is lost. Damn. Every minute? I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Do you guys think that's true? Let's do the math on that, guys. Let's find out if we're getting famous here or not. So every minute, an area of tropical tree covers. Wait, hold on. Every minute, an area of tropical tree cover the size of 40 football fields is lost. So, okay, the wording is kind of strange on that, but basically, it sounds like it's saying every minute, 40 football fields worth of tropical trees is lost. So, how many acres are on the planet Earth? Hold on, guys. How many acres is on planet Earth? I guess by land, right? Okay, 126 billion acres, guys. All right, 126 billion acres. All right, let's see if we can do this. 126 billion acres. Now let's do how many acres is a football field? How many is a football field? Okay, guys, one football field equals 1.32 acres. All right. So we're going to do 1.32, 40 football fields lost. So we're going to do 40 times 1.32. Okay, so 52.8 every minute, 52.8 acres worth of tropical trees is lost or harvest. I mean, I don't know what they mean by lost, right? I mean, this could also be like, if I'm going to play devil's advocate out here and we're going to throw like an unknown variable in here, like who's to say that maybe some of that's lost 1 minute and the next minute it's regrown somehow in a time capsule cryogenic chamber? I don't know. Okay. But 152.8. So that's how many acres of Earth's rainforest tree coverage is lost per minute. All right. How many minutes are in a day? So let's do 24. What is that? 24. I don't feel like doing that. How many minutes is in a day? 1,044. All right. So this times 1,040. Okay. So 76,032 acres per day of rainforest is lost per day. Okay. Now let's do times a year. So times 365. Okay. So that means every year, 27.7 and some change million acres is lost. So if that's the case for 1 year, and we know that there's 126 billion acres in Earth total, which, by the way, guys, I should probably point this out because it seems this should seem obvious, but it might not be to some people. So how many acres is on planet Earth? 126 billion, but that doesn't mean that that's how many acres of like rainforest are there. I'm sure they're including the ground that I'm on right now and already inhabited land, right? Not all rainforest land. So let's do this. I'm going to use Google for this because I don't think my phone can display this many digits. So we're going to do 126 billion divided by, to just round it off, 27.5 million. It's 4,581. Okay, so then technically, guys, it would take 4,581 years for all the rainforest trees to get cut. Okay. I was getting worried for a second that we'd be out of rainforest by tomorrow. Nonetheless, guys, it's still pretty sad, right? Working on the roof. Yeah, it is hot outside, man. It's hot in here too. Alex says, damn, the forests are said to be still burning in Canada. A couple days here, the sky was red. I mean, like, I don't know much about like forest fires, but isn't like Canada and lots of places in the Midwest and like on the West Coast in the United States and like other parts of Canada, aren't they like perpetually like burning fires? I know that in the Everglades, there's constant like natural fires that go on. In fact, they even like have man-made fires in the Everglades, but for specific reasons to like kill certain plants off or whatever. But hasn't that always been the case? Because I feel like every year they're like, oh, there's so many fires this year, but it's been like that for like years, right? As far as I know, that's what it seems like to me, right? But I don't know. Now let's see what else is going on with this timeline. All right, so now we're in Madagascar, guys. (1984), 2020. All right, that's a pretty big difference, right? And you can just tell like the green is gone. Or you're doing a second place in Bolivia, but okay, here we go. Okay, that's pretty substantial. Yikes.com. At the current rate, 60% of Amazon rainforest is projected to disappear by 2050. Alex, how much carbon dioxide is in the air to breathe? Well, not for us to breathe, I guess some plants, but I don't know. How would you be able to measure that? I really don't know. I don't know how you would measure that. You'd have to get like a smeloscope or something. Okay, forest absorbs approximately 1/3 of the carbon dioxide. There you go, Alex. There's your carbon dioxide, monoxide. Forests absorb approximately 1/3 of the carbon dioxide released by burning fossil fuels every year. Okay, so the important thing to note here is, you know, people are like, cars bad, right? But like forests actually need the combustion that we're giving out, the carbon dioxide that's coming out of combustion engines. The forests literally need these things to survive, right? Because they absorb it for us, and they need to live. So one could equate, one thing we could derive from that is that it's quite possible that we kind of need these forests to sustain ourselves too. Because what do forests do? Like, what do plants do? They create oxygen. They create oxygen and they feed off of carbon dioxide, which is like a waste product of all carbon things, including us, right? We're carbon-based beings too. And when we die and decay, when we exhale carbon dioxide. Cody Moose says, there's always my thoughts. Here's always my thoughts on this. How do we know if this isn't a normal process on Earth? We've been here for 15 seconds and claim to have figured it all out. That's true. And we're already, like, I'm already 18 minutes, 20 minutes in the stream. Guys, honestly, this is the least important part of what I think has inhibited humanity from the Industrial Revolution. Because the other stuff that I'm going to get to, and who knows, I don't even know if I'll have time tonight to get through all the 7 things, but I'll get to the other part, the juicy part next, the part that I think is the most important, or at least the next 2. Yeah, I mean, we don't know that, Cody, right? And also, like, how can all these metrics that they're throwing out there, how could we possibly like measure any of this like reliably, right? I mean, you're talking about taking statistical information from accredited people who, and organizations and groups who have been known to tell you to do things like put syringes into your body with unknown substances, that just because, hey, just do it, bro. Just fucking do it, bro. Right? So, I mean, who knows, right? But what I think is the sad part about it is, like, I legitimately like outside. I like nature, and it's just kind of sad to think about how it's dwindling because people are absorbing it for them, or people are absorbing the nature because there's too much of us on the planet now. There's just too much of us. And I guess the biggest take home about this part of the detrimental impact of the Industrial Revolution on mankind is that, hey, maybe there shouldn't be this many people on the planet, you know? Maybe. Over a 40-year span, that's basically less than a blink of an eye for this planet. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Deforestation is changing our climate, harming people and the natural world. We must and can reverse this trend. Yeah, just, get a bunch of people to take like unknown injections or something like that. That might fix it. Okay, so that's enough for that timeline. Enough for the sappy timeline. Who says, although I do agree there's too many fuckers on this planet. Yeah. A lot of people that probably, well, I don't know. That wouldn't be nice to say. All right. So that's number one. I'm going to get to real quick. Let me go down the list, guys, and I'll just like tell, and then we'll get back to the ones that I think are important. So number two, labor exploitation, right? You are probably automatically defaulting to thinking, okay, like people in a Chinese sweatshop. That's not the only thing. That's what they'll tell you is a negative That's what like Wikipedia might tell you is a negative repercussion of the Industrial Revolution. But my personal opinion is that a lot of women are negatively impacted due to the Industrial Revolution because honestly, a lot of women don't really want to work, at least not to the same extent and the same type of jobs as men. A lot of women, the ones that are actual, like this type of woman that are left on planet Earth, which is not much left, right? They want to do things like have a family, have kids, have grandkids, make a house into a home, be nurturing and like motherly. And these same women that have these desires, well, now because the Industrial Revolution, as kind of a consequence, pretty much everybody has to work, right? Like you can't just not work anymore. Even in high income families, most of the cases, like a lot of the men and the women are both working a job. My parents, both my mom and dad, are still working to this day. I mean, I think they're both about to retire, but even my mom is still working till this day. And I just don't think, guys, I just don't believe that women have like the how can I word this without getting kicked off of YouTube? Actually, what am I saying? I'm not going to get kicked off of YouTube for saying this. So many other people say it. Look, guys, men and women are different. If you disagree, that's fine. You can just leave my channel. But men and women are fundamentally different. I know that for certain. There's been times in my life where I didn't really think that was the case. I think we're all taught the exact opposite growing up, right? The Disney fantasy, blah, 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 blah. But men and women are fundamentally different. Men have a lot of positive attributes that women don't, and women have a lot of positive attributes men don't. Women can do things like create children. We can't. We can give them the DNA to do so, or we can give them half of the equation to initiate creating a child, but we can't do it with our own bodies, right? However, we can do a lot of things as men with our own bodies that women can't. Like we can lift an extraneously large amount more weight in both volume. I'm talking about like physically. So if you had to like be in the forest and do scavenging things when you were a scavenger before the agricultural revolution, actually during that time period too, I would assume, right? Then the male body is adapted to do this over time, whereas the female body wasn't so much, right? I also think that with work, especially in like modern society, it's extremely mentally taxing on a lot of women. Like a lot of women that I know always complain about stuff that goes on in work. And it's like a lot of the stuff that they complain about to me would seem like something that would kind of just fly underneath the radar for me. So in my opinion, they are negatively impacted by this as well. And of course, child labor, right? Not to say that children weren't expected to work hundreds of years ago, but I'm sure that they weren't tied up in sweatshops in like China or India or wherever else this is going on at, and expected to slave away for like 20 hours a day while they get to sleep and eat for 4 hours, you know? But zero population growth is in developed countries. Supposedly China is in big trouble. Do we know if that's true though? At this point, I don't trust any statistics from I wouldn't trust any statistics from China. I wouldn't trust any kind of like data or reporting statistics from the United States either at this point. So that's labor exploitation, public health challenges, to like kind of glaze past this one really quick. One thing I can think of is like STDs, right? Like they're just absolutely rampant. And we got time. We can go into that later, but it's kind of fucking sad. And honestly, if we get into this, if we get the time to go through this one, you guys probably will like just never want to just go have a one-nighter out like that ever again, because it might just scare you. Next is social inequalities. I mean, there's a lot that we could talk about this. And then cultural disruptions, technological unemployment. And then also, I'm going to this is the seventh one, guys, but this can coincide with social inequalities. I think just kind of go the same, but specifically negative impact on like the family and social norms, societal norms. So let's get into this one first. So number one of bullet point number 7, because I have different topics that I want to talk about on the disruption of the family. We're just going to call it the family, because I don't even know if okay, I'll put this out there. So my family, back at home, there were a lot of other families kind of like my family. Most people that I grew up with had very similar types of families and upbringing. And since then, since I've left my comfy and cozy trademark little town of New Orleans, Louisiana, I've come to find that there's really not a lot of families. There's not a lot of families, period, right? The ones that are, a lot of them seem incredibly dysfunctional. And it's kind of scary. As someone who wants to have a family of their own one day, my biggest fear, and this is something that I've been thinking about a lot in the last couple of weeks too. My biggest fear is having a family that is anything resemblant of dysfunction. Because so many people these days, dysfunctional family just seems to be a normal thing. And the people that come from dysfunctional families often, and if you do come from a dysfunctional family, I don't mean any harm to you, but often seem to become dysfunctional themselves. They end up relating with other people who either also come from dysfunctional families, or they end up kind of bringing their dysfunction into other people's lives. And so it's kind of like a virus that can kind of spread around. And it seems like it is a virus, and it's been spreading around chronically since the Industrial Revolution, we could say. Probably long before that, but KW says, hopefully got it all. Had the luckiest bounce, almost dropped the bottle from the top of the ladder and bounced in the landed on my shoes. It would have shattered, right? It's a glass bottle. Spark 55 in the house. What's up, man? So back to the family topic, guys. Separation of families. So with more factories, more urbanization, a lot of families, and let's just keep this kind of to the United States. However, this doesn't just apply to the United States, all right? Because it's the entire world. But families were kind of forced to migrate from these rural areas, and this is still actually happening now. Forced to migrate from these rural areas into industrial centers in search for work, because coming out of the agriculture revolution, going into the industrial revolution, agriculture was no longer something that an entire city and or an entire continent could partake in, and that just be it, right? So they have to get money, because they can't just sustain their lives living on a farm. So what do? They have to move into these more rural areas. And this kind of displaced people and families, and allowed, or really more so drove, family members to being separated. So for example, Billy Joe from Starkville, Mississippi, his daddy was a farmer. His daddy's daddy was a farmer. His grandpappy's grandfather was a farmer. But Billy Joe can't be a farmer anymore because it's just not profitable enough, right? Why would people buy all the corn from Billy Bob Joe Thornton's farm when they could just buy it from Bill Gates's super GMO farm for half the price and get a lot more, right? So Billy Bob Joe Thornton has to leave his family to go into the city and go to college and go whatever. This is an automatic displacement of family. Now, this usually isn't just this wouldn't be the same as like, you going to college, coming back. Usually when this kind of happens, if you're from that kind of type of rural background, what are you going to go back home to after you graduate? Maybe Billy Joe Thornton got an engineering degree. Maybe he got a computer science degree and he's going to be a software engineer now. He's going to go back to Starkville, Mississippi to work. I mean, maybe if he got a remote job, yeah, but he's probably not going to, because the rest of his life is going to be dependent upon his location. If there was other Billy Bob Joe Thornton maybe wants to get married and have kids, are there good choices for a mate for Billy Bob Joe Thornton there anymore? Probably not. They're probably all gone because they're probably looking for the same thing. And they probably also went to college, and et cetera, et cetera. So this displacement of family kind of came or started to kind of like ramp up once work inside of agriculture was no longer as big of a thing. Are you not a mod? I can fix that real quick. You should be a mod now. Now you a mod. Spark55 says, in my opinion, the Industrial Revolution began with the invention of the book press. I think I faintly remember something about the printing press, right? It coincides at the same time frame too. Yeah. Yeet. So this separation of families kind of strained family bonds and weakened a sense of kinship. And like I was telling you guys earlier, when I was growing up, my family, my entire extended family was constantly doing things like crawfish boils, having parties for this person, that person. And the last 10 years, that's significantly dwindled. It has significantly dwindled. Now, a lot of people in the family have moved away. A lot of them are getting old. A lot of them have died. But that was pretty much all I knew growing up. And my father and my mother both the same for their side, and the same for their parents before them. I highly doubt, guys, my kids are going to have the ability to do as much of that kind of stuff with their family as even I did, let alone my parents or my parents' parents, because I mean, I'm over here in Florida, right? The rest of my family is like New Orleans, Mississippi, California, Oregon. So like, it's just not going to be the same. And that's just a direct result now that's going to be more common going forward. Alex says, anyone ever watch the old Connection series? Presenter says technology leaps forward. If you don't have the perspective, would look like luck. What do you mean? Anyone watch the old Connection series? Presenter says technology leaps forward. If you didn't have the perspective, it would look like luck. Perspective for technology leaping forward and looking like luck, as in like having the access to technology is like luck. I don't know. I'm confused about that, Alex. If you could reiterate, please. All right. Another one too. In family and societal norms. So there's been like a literal shift in gender roles. The Industrial Revolution has introduced a clear division between the workplace and home, unless I think kind of little changing now, right? If you work from home, then you're going to have a different kind of scenario, but then you're going to be like me and you're basically trapped in work 24/7, 365, right? But that's fine because I don't mind working at all. Not everyone's a freak though, like me. However, let's say for a majority of the case, men typically worked in like factories and women were often relegated to doing like domestic duties, kind of like I was talking about, right? Prior to this kind of like shift, this kind of shift has reinforced different rigid gender norms and has limited opportunities for men to participate in their. Okay, so I'm trying to word this in a way that I also am not going to be a sledgehammer here, but honestly, I shouldn't give a shit. So can't predict how science will be able to save us all, but it has in the past. Okay. Spark5 says, honestly disagree with the Industrial Revolution brought the gender divide thing. It was the decadence of the West which brought about feminism. Well, okay, yes. However, when did that start to like ramp up in the last 200-300 years? Pretty much like after the Industrial Revolution. Yeah, the same thing happened in Rome. However, and we can think about Rome as like the West. Like Rome is kind of like the modern West. Like Rome is like the non-modern, the elder West, right? Except they didn't have machinery and stuff like that. But the same, you are right. However, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying that to the extent that it has happened after the Industrial Revolution has kind of facilitated. Because, like, dude, what? Let's think about this. Women had specific delegated like home duties, right? They would turn a house into a home. They would do things that, you know, what you would consider to be traditionally feminine, right? Cook, clean, nurture. The man was going to go out and provide the next day. He could lose his life every single day. So when he's at home at night, she's going to take care of him and make sure he's fueled up and ready to go back out there. She's going to spend the primary amount of time with the children the first couple of years as opposed to the father. And after this has happened, well, now we have like what? We have like the dishwasher, right? We have all kinds of different mechanized cleaning things. I mean, there's freaking like robots that vacuum the floor now, right? So it's like, what would the need of that? What would the need for that to be? Do we still have the same necessity? No. Doesn't mean that it's not nice still. Of course it's nice. And in fact, I think it's even more nice now considering that it's such a rarity, in my opinion. But is the necessity the same? No. But in the same way that it happened in Rome, I mean, this was primarily facilitated and then exacerbated by the Industrial Revolution with the technology that was produced. Mike Hart in the house says, men and women evolved to be good at certain tasks. Now technology has progressed as such where those tasks are really not needed anymore. Yeah, that's true. So like, let me get back to my thoughts here, guys. Men typically worked in factories and women were like relegated to domestic roles. So now that we have this technology, there's no clear like differentiable line that's like, okay, this is a masculine job, this is a feminine job. Like, you know, somebody said something, they were like, oh, well, doctors, that's a masculine job, but a nurse is a feminine job. And then somebody said on a YouTube video that I was watching, they made a good argument, and it was like, well, like, what if you were in World War II and you broke your leg or something like that, and like you were dependent upon a nurse to like move you around and everything. Are you going to want the 110-pound female nurse to do that? Or are you going to want the guy that can like actually like save you from the battlefield? Not that medics are nurses, guys. And I obviously know the difference, right? But I'm just using an analogy here. I mean, if I have to trust my life in someone's hands, I'm going to make sure it's somebody that can't drop me if my legs are broken, right? You know, or else like, you know, what's the point? But there's no clear differentiable line between what is men's work and what is women's work. And in one way or the other, I think more so from women kind of taking over men's lines of work than the opposite way around, because we don't really like, we see a lot of women going into like doctors, the PhD, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But we don't see a lot of like women going into like being linemen or firefighters or you know, any type of like, we could say blue collar type of work, right? So this is clearly something that's affected gender roles, in my opinion, and specifically like Mike's comment right here, due to technology. Now, if we are humans programmed to do what humans do, i.e., one is a male and one is a female, and now there's even less of something that kind of clearly defines the different line between us two, is that a good thing for humanity, or is it going to be something that might be kind of negative and consequential? Now, child labor, that's part of the societal norm. I mean, the demand for child labor in factories specifically is is definitely one of these other issues that I think is part of the societal degradation of the Industrial Revolution. Now, again, not because like children never were going to work, because children always worked back in the day, right? But they weren't stuck in sweat factories in hazardous conditions that they were essentially like slaves, right? Not that there weren't slaves, not that this didn't happen 2, 3, 500,000 years ago, but it's kind of done on a lot larger scale now in some of these countries. And let's actually, I didn't know if I didn't know if I was gonna spend the time to share this video, guys. But let's just take a look at this real quick, guys. Really quick. I'm gonna speed through it. Mark Harden says, agreed. Women usually pursue the male careers that are higher status. Spark says, the other reason I don't think Industrial Revolution isn't single-handedly responsible for it in industrialized countries still remain gender roles much more than we do in the West. I mean, countries, there's other countries other than just the West that have, you're saying, the benefits of the Industrial Revolution, but it's not as pronounced. Yes. But if you zoom out, it's probably a lot more pronounced than it was 50 years ago, right? And I would be willing to bet that in another 50 years, it might be even more pronounced, which might also not be the case. This might be a self-correcting issue. I guess we'll see. Christian Soto says the medic is probably wearing a Fury suit nowadays. Oh my God. Okay. All right, guys, check this out.
Child labor and forced labor in China.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a big worry. You hear about it, sweatshops. You see something went viral recently from that Shine thing where people were getting notes like "help me" or whatever, you know, in the products
It's been going on for
this
years.
is something that people know about. It's always a thing.
Forced labor is ubiquitous around China.
Yeah. Okay. And child labor, we know it exists, or it has existed. It's not a secret. Okay. Of course, China has anti-child labor laws.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to be 16 to work. If you're younger than 16, you're not allowed to be working.
It's interesting because I saw freaking 5 to 8-year-olds soldering wires into calculators when I went to China in a major city.
That's the thing, though. You know, what we've seen with our own eyes shows us. That's why we have this show.
Yeah.
We would not have this show otherwise.
Remember all the children working in the village where we had our shop?
Yeah.
What, like, there was underage kids working in factories.
I mean,
illegal factories.
There's a reason why we have a lot of passion for what we do.
Yeah.
And that's because when you see bullshit,
yeah,
okay, you have to stand up to it.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And when you've seen the reality of China, and then you have all these glowing reports and all these useful idiots going around defending China and saying things that are completely untrue.
Yeah.
Let me pause real quick, guys. I'm going to say this. Let's make a clear difference here between like a child from a family of like 12 and that child's daily chore is to go out and pick all the apples from the orchard on the family property or on like in the agricultural societal property 500 years ago, right? Then a child being locked up in like a cage in a sweatshop, having to like solder together calculators or whatever, right? There's a clear difference, to me at least, between those two.
Because you've seen it with your own eyes, you have to stand up to it. There's just nothing else you can do. If you don't stand up to it, you're a coward.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, because there's now a new probe into child labor. This guy, his name's Morton or something.
Just a quick question. Why do you think they would probe into child labor in China? Would it be because it's a huge pervasive issue?
It is. And we'll get into that. This guy, yesterday, this was,
all right, let's show some footage.
This particular thing. But there was a huge thing. The Chinese government was very proud to this. This was from the 2016 thing here, this picture in the background. Very proud to say, look, we've arrested these child labor gangs, or we've arrested these people that have been using child labor. So the Chinese government themselves, right then and there, reporting that child labor is a thing. See over here, this was in 2008. It was in Dongguan. That was when they busted that big ring that I remember, because when I was living there,
I remember this picture.
Of course, this was when the Chinese news was much more open.
Yeah, so it wasn't open, but it was much more
open. They're very happy to report on this stuff because it makes them look good.
Yeah,
makes them look good.
The point of this, guys, is it's a thing, right? It is an actual thing, and that's from back when, like, they were saying the Chinese news was more open. Who knows what's going on with it now? And of course, this is taking place in more places than just China. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you guys want your kids working in a sweatshop? Not me. And dude, who knows? Like, who knows? We might be all living in the pods. We might, in 20 years, we might not even have access to our own kids. I mean, at this point, you may as well not have access to your own kids because they go through some crappy public school system and they're not euthanized, but they're sterilized, we could say. What is the correct medical term? Basically, they're forced to take a bunch of immunizations, immunized, whatever the actual word is that I don't know. I'm not a public health professional, but they're forced to be taking all this like things in their body that nobody was doing hundreds of years ago, right? Just so that they can participate in a crappy public school that is going to be the exact opposite stimulus for what little boys need, especially maybe more so for little girls, but the exact opposite for little boys. And that's even more of a gender roles issue, but also like a compound of every single issue that I've discussed so far on this stream. But enough about the child labor. Let's talk about probably the biggest, most important one here, because this also kind of has an effect on every single thing that I've talked about on this stream. And I mean this. Loss of community. So the migration of families from more rural places to urban living, it's disrupted close-knit communities. A lot of those close-knit communities characterize rural living. In big cities, people live in like crowded and often unsanitary conditions. Like, my God, if you guys come to Miami, that's why everything is built up, not out. It's incredibly crowded, and a lot of these places are incredibly unsanitary. Not only are they crowded and unsanitary, but having no real meaningful social support networks is drastic to humanity. It separates us all. And I don't care what you say. One of the biggest things people say about Miami is there's a huge lack of community. Most people here, and probably in all big cities, I would probably say, it's like a kind of like fuck them before they fuck you kind of mentality. People will be friends temporarily so they can suck something out of somebody else, but it doesn't really go a lot deeper than that. If you do have people in your life that are meaningful, lifelong connections, and you live in a big city, your true, intimate, lifelong connections, you know, I'm talking about the people that you can call 3 o'clock in the morning to come help you. Fortunately for me, now they're not lifelong connections, but several years, I have a good bit of friends in Miami who I could call at 3 o'clock in the morning. But the people who I would really, really, really need to talk to about like deep things in my life, I'd probably talk to the people that I have here about that, but they wouldn't be the first that I would talk to. I would talk to like one of my like 3 or 4 best friends from back at home. And that's just how it is. Like, I don't know what other way to put it, because when you have an intimate connection and relationship with somebody, that takes time, and it's going to be more intimate, and you're going to have a deeper connection with somebody that you've known since you were 6, as opposed to people that you've known for like 3 years, right? And because of this migration from rural areas into cities, it's going to be dwindling, right? It's going to affect you more. It's going to affect everybody more, because just going to be less of a lack. There's going to be more of a lack of community, and just less community in general. And you know, that lack of community connections, it's contributes to feelings of isolation and a weakened sense of belonging. You know, people didn't have that kind of like weakened sense of belonging when everyone was very close knit and not crowded together, but like willingly together in an area and bonded on the same values, the same traditions, the same upbringing, even the same religion, regardless of whatever that religion is, just the same ethics in general, right? Hashtag homeschool your kids. Yeah. My wife's going to have to do that. Spark55 says a lot of the changes we talked about became really bad with the rise of the internet. I mean, loss of communities, social networks, etc. Yep. But we wouldn't have the internet if it wasn't for machinery, right? We wouldn't have machinery if it wasn't for the Industrial Revolution. Mike says, just moved to a new state. It's kind of tough not having friends here. How old are you, Mike? Let me know. Are you in your 30s? Because it do be like that sometimes. Another thing, guys, is the erosion of traditional values. So as we've transitioned from agrarian to more industrial, traditional values and customs have been eroding since then. Probably long so before that, but like, again, we're talking about the transition from pre-industrial to post, right? So a pace of living in a city like fucking Miami, where everyone's like, beep, beep, it can be annoying. I mean, you learn to get used to that, but just the pace, the upbeat pace of city living and the demands of industrial work, they often clash with lots of long-standing cultural norms. And that can lead to you feeling disoriented. You can feel culturally detached. Like, for example, if you are an immigrant from France and you come to like Miami, Florida for work, Miami was primarily like a Cuban, a very heavy Cuban-based culture. You're not going to feel the same cultural connection. It's going to be completely different. Jawad says, do you think it will reverse or stay the same? I think that this is a self-correcting issue, and I think that in like 500 years from now, it's going to be like probably the way that it was 1,000 years ago. But I guess we're going to have to see, right? Alex says, USA doesn't really have that much culture, just commerce-based behaviors. Yeah, consume. Our uncle was right, guys. Our uncle was right. And then there's social stratification. So the growing divide between wealthy individualists and then the working class has intensified social inequalities. And when I say social inequalities, I don't mean like the hashtag like so inequality and justice for whatever, blah, 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 that you guys are like probably used to hearing about. Most of the, like, if you are a doctor, if you are a lawyer, if you are the CEO of a business, if you're a business owner, if you're a multi-million-dollar trader, you're still in the working class, right? You're still, believe it or not, you are a working class citizen. If you come from one of like the 150 different richest families in the world, because that's how little that they are now. It used to be a lot more than that. That's how little that they are now. It's probably even less than that. And you never have to work. Your children's children are never going to have to work. Your father never had to work. And you're just perpetually living off of like the Rockefeller Foundation. Then that is going to exacerbate the difference in social stratification. Now, like, we've probably seen this in like freaking USSR. Started with the guys of being the opposite and ended up being pretty much exactly that. But in a way, one could argue, in a few ways, I could actually argue that the kind of the same thing that was going on in the USSR is going on in the US of A right now. You know, cue up the X-Files theme song right there. Impact on education. So the need for child labor meant that children had limited access to education. I guarantee you those kids in China, in the Chinese sweatshop, are not being very, very highly educated. This kind of perpetuated a cycle of low literacy rates and restricted social mobility for these quote unquote working class families. And we're going to see this more exacerbated in places like China than here, because here, well, that's actually not true. It's probably more exacerbated here, but it's more overt in like China, where it would be more covert here. And I don't feel the need to kind of like pontificate on that, but if you guys know what I mean by that, then you probably know. You're 24, Mike. Oh yeah, you'd be fine. You'll be fine, man. Jaw says the aliens are real. Just ask the United States government. They said so. Yeah. Yeah. They got to have something else to throw out there to distract us now, right? Impact on education too. One thing real quick. I mean, God, guys, the education, just like Cody said, hashtag homeschool your kids. The education system in the United States is just absolute garbage. Fuck anybody who contributes to the public education system here. I'm sorry. Fuck you. Stress on marital relationships. So this is, let me look up the statistics here. Divorce statistics 2020. The last I heard, it was like 50% of marriages in a divorce. I thought after that it was like 60. So I'm looking at something that says consensus.gov. It says the marriage and divorce rates in the United States has decreased from 2011 to 2021. But I think the reason why, somewhere between 40 and 50%. Okay, that's what this says, 40 to 50%. Second marriages have a divorce rate of 6-7%. But I think it's because statistics 2023. I believe we're having a lot less marriages. Gen Z millennials survey on marriage and living together. Hold on, guys. Give me a second here because there's just too many articles here. All right. I'll share this too. Okay, my friends. So I do not, which I guess is punny because when you get married, you're supposed to say I do, right? So I do not. Gen Z millennials shifting expectation about marriage in 2023. So wedding bells are not ringing as much nowadays, according to the U.S. Census Bureau statistics. Does this link actually bring us to the? Okay, it does. More than 1 in 3, so 34% of people 15 years or older have never been married in 2022. Holy shit. I feel like this should be broadened or narrowed down from 18 and greater, but damn. Excuse me, guys. Y'all, I'm so tired. I've literally been in the water all weekend. And the sun drains the crap out of you. So yeah, guys, like 1/3 of people have never been married in 2022, and that's up from 1 in 4 in 1950. So all right, and then you'd think maybe 20 years from now, 1/2. So we wanted to ask why few people are walking down the aisle. We surveyed millennials and Gen Zers who are currently in a relationship but not married to learn about their living situations and future expectations. While the majority are hoping to tie the knot someday, many aren't in a rush to do so. So 2 in 5 think marriage is outdated tradition. 41% of that was men, 52% of that was women. 73% feel it's too expensive to get married in the current economy. 85% do not think marriage is necessary to have a fulfilling and committed relationship. 83% are hoping to get married someday. 1 in 6 are not planning to get married. The main reason is 72% just aren't interested in getting married. The most marriage adverse cities. Oh boy, let's look at this. Toledo, Ohio, Seattle, Washington, Spokane, Washington, Portland, Oregon. Okay, these 2, 3, and 4 don't surprise me. Minneapolis, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Madison, Reno, Nevada, St. Petersburg, Florida, Columbus, Ohio, Denver, Colorado, Orlando, Florida, St. Louis, Missouri, Tucson, Arizona, Oakland, California, Buffalo, New York, Pittsburgh, Long Beach, Lexington, Phoenix, Detroit, Boston, San Francisco, Greensboro, Bakersfield, Albuquerque, Durham, Cincinnati, and Jersey City. Now, the reason why Miami, Florida is not number 1, guys, do you want to know the reason why Miami, Florida is not number 1? Yes, Black Sheep in the house. Smash the like button. Please do, guys. And you guys, if you can guess the reason why Miami, Florida is not the number 1, well, it probably should be. for being a marriage-averse city. If you can get the correct answer in the chat, I'll let you guys know if you're right or not. Black Sheep says new squat PR, 408 pounds at 185. Nice, dude. It's pretty fucking good. I stuck at 380 for a while. Glad I got the rep. Dude, that's actually a splendiferous achievement at 185 body weight. Are you natty, bra? If you are, that's fucking insanely pretty good. That's insanely good. Okay. Despite declining marriage rates, younger generations don't want to stay single forever, while 2 in 5 think marriage is outdated tradition. 80% of Gen Z and millennials anticipate tying the knot at some point. One barrier to getting married, the cost. Blah, blah, blah. Reasons for living together before marriage. 3 in 5 unmarried couples live with their partner. Gen Z is far less than millennials. 60% moved in a year after a year of dating or less. 80% moved in because they wanted to. 70% share a pet with their partner. 51% do not have a plan for their pet if they break up. Damn. That sucks. 39% do not split pet costs equally. Of course not. Of fucking course not. 1 in 2 said fiancés were part of their decision to move in. 50% do not split the mortgage rent equally. 37% feel like the relationship is financially unequal. 89% do not have a plan for their children or children if they break up. So 15% of them have a child together. And then 86 do not split costs for the child unequally or equally. 1 in 10 regret moving in together. 60% feel like they moved in together too fast. That's actually surprisingly low. Expectations. Yeah. I know the rest of that kind of seems not so important. Yeah, we got the answer in here, boys. Cody Moose and the Who's. Cody Moose got the right answer for why Miami, Florida is not the number 1 on that city's list. Very good, Cody. Very good. No, that's not why. This is not the reason. Okay, guys. Enough about the marriage, because I mean we could just go on that all night. Let's end this list of the societal teardown with the most important one. Border Town vibes. Cody Moose and the Who's again. Yee yee. All right. So what has affected family and societal norms the most due to the Industrial Revolution or the post-industrial revolution? I'm going to say, guys, moral and ethical. We can say concerns, but really just degradation, okay? The harsh conditions of city living, along with exploitation of things like child labor and labor, the battle of the sexes, labor in general, the battle of the sexes, the need to hyper compete, the need and search for things to fulfill people or to fill people with something that is more physically tangible, as opposed to what we are all missing from being kind of like a congenial smorgasbord of, well, smorgasbord. Not smorgasbord, because we're kind of a smorgasbord if you're living in a city now, but just a congenial, really just traditional family sharing the same values. That we're not going to get living in a crowded city, chasing after materialistic things. And since the Industrial Revolution, post-Industrial Revolution, that's all that there is to be gained at this point. At least for the foreseeable future, and it's how most people see it. Now, is that actually true? I don't think so, but that's what we're told on the TV, right? More moral and ethical concerns, and I'm not talking about moral and ethical concerns that CNN is going to talk about. I'm talking about all the kind that people that are probably in the stream right now are thinking about. You guys are probably thinking about the right ones. There's literally like activist groups that are fighting for specific rights for specific people that already have those said rights. So who are they fighting? Who are they being destructive towards? Is that a net negative that they're putting out into the universe, or is it a net positive? You got to think about that. That's only been getting worse, especially in the last 10 years. That has only been getting worse. This everything we talked about tonight, guys, it has been a detriment on education, the family, just society as a whole. So should I take this computer, guys, and should I just smash it? Should I just throw it off of the balcony back there? Should I quit my job? Should I quit doing YouTube and everything else and just go live in the woods? I don't know. Some people would say that there's a guy that did that and he went to jail and he's a crazy man. He might also be he might also be the most brilliant person on the planet that's ever existed, but he also might be crazy. But I'm gonna leave you guys to figure that out on your own and to make your own opinion about that. Unnecessary gender war. Yeah. 100%. 100%. That's not going to stop anytime soon. Although I think that is a self-correcting issue. I think that my generation, the millennials, and then I think the Gen Zers might be too screwed, or the Zoomers, they might be too screwed. But I think the next generation is going to see how aged men and women. So let's say when millennials start to get into their 50s and 60s, I think that the younger generations are going to look at that and even say, "Holy shit, I don't want to have anything to do with like that. I'm going to be the opposite of that." Fuck, they might even fall in love and get married at the age of 16 at that point. Who knows? Spark says, I mean, India is a good example of the 1% divorce rate. Despite having industry notice through countries with Western influence, much higher rate. India has a 1% divorce rate. That is outstanding. But I'm going to assume that India, I think that probably like traditions and culture in India have sustained a lot further in India than like they have in the United States, right? Now, I'll also ask you this. Do you believe that India is as hyper industrialized as like the United States or China? I truly think Western decadence is the main factor. I would agree with you, dude. I would agree with you that decadence is the main factor. But the argument I'm trying to assert here, my truth, what I'm trying to assert is that it is facilitating it on hyperdrive. It is literally facilitating it to the fullest extent. I mean, think about this. What Jaw mentioned over here, the unnecessary gender war. Do you think that the current unnecessary gender war would be a thing if dating apps and social media didn't exist? I don't think it would be anywhere near as pronounced as it is right now, right? But it might exist, but I certainly don't think it would be anywhere near as pronounced as it is right now. Alex says, bro, we have a low scale skirmish. Cost thousands of views, come to a small space to see an influencer give away PS5s. Get off my lawn. I do. Yeah. 2023, Alex. 2023, my man. Amplifies is good and bad. Okay. Yes, Spark. But if we're being realistic with ourselves, do you think that there's more good or bad people in current time? With that Western decadence, I'm going to say it's going to be definitely more on the bad side, right? Join the lumber sexual movement. All right, I'll have to look into that. Apparently, guys, I'm not really a lumbersexual. More bad. Yeah, more bad for sure. Mo bad. I'm not really a lumbersexual so much. Apparently I'm a psychosexual, guys. So there's that. All right, guys. I mean, it's up to y'all. Y'all want to go live in the woods or not? Is this going to get better, worse? That's for y'all to decide. I'm out, guys. Night.